Chaps, ask yourself this one question. What do blokes like Aman Gadzi, Alex Hormozi, and Andrew Tate all have in common? Some of you nerds might be thinking it's their top tier physiques, no homo, but it's not. What they have in common is that they all have cult audiences. And these cult audiences are what's putting them on track to become the next wave of billionaires. But what if you could also build a cult audience? What would happen if you could also build a personal brand stacked to the tits with raving fans? Now, despite what you think, there is a formula for building a brand audience so strong that it turns into a money printing machine. And in today's video, I'm going to give you the exact formula and framework that all of these guys use so that you can build a personal brand audience of cult-like hyperfans without all the downsides that comes along with being infamous. The truth is that we are entering the next season of the creator economy and you have no time to waste. And despite it being forecast to double in size in the next few years to over $500 million, if you don't play by these rules, you won't survive, let alone thrive. Right, champs, you're about to get the goods and you'll want to stick around to the end where I have a little gift for you, as well as giving you the 2 power sentences that if you say in your content will have your fans frothing to hand over their cash. And fair warning, if you're one of those TikTok infected teens with the attention span of a coked up rat, then honestly, mate, you may as well piss off. For the rest of you though, let's dive in. Okay, welcome to the cult audience formula. This one's going to be a good one, and you guys are going to want to pay close attention to this one. Okay, so there's 6 parts to this formula, and I'm going to take you through this framework that I've kind of ciphered from watching all of these dudes over the years. So the first part of this framework is understanding that for people to be able to feel like they know you, they have to know your world. And the best example ever of a world that people have come to love as a brand are these guys, aka your friends. Well, I mean, if you've seen the TV show, they probably feel like your friends. And that is the point. I'm explaining to you why that is. So Friends was the biggest TV show of the 90s and early 2000s and when I was growing up, and you got to feel like you knew them as friends. That was kind of like a meta part of the TV show itself, because they had a few different components to the show. The first was that there were characters. You probably had your favorite characters. Mine was Joey Tribbiani, epic character, favorite, Matt LeBlanc, absolute hero. So they had characters, and what this did is this made you feel like you knew them at a very, very personal level. And these characters also had side characters. So we had things like Chandler's parents, we had Rachel's sister, we had Ross and his, I guess, the ugly naked guy that lived across from him. Monica, I can't remember what Monica had. I just remember she was fat at one point. But you get my point. They had characters. Now, all of these characters also had interests. For example, like Joey clearly was an actor, but he also liked food. Phoebe infamously became kind of known for her love of music, and she was shit at it, and that was kind of the joke. But they had interests, and again, this was another layer that allowed you to really understand and feel like you knew these people like friends, like literally like friends. And the final piece of this world that they had was they had sets. So there were the apartments that they had, that all of them had their own apartments. They obviously had Central Park coffee shop, and all of the other sets as well. So these were the 3 main components that they had in their world. I'm going to show you some examples of how these guys, these influencers, had the same. So the likes of Andrew and Tristan Tate, their characters are themselves and quite frequently they post content about the people kind of very close to them in their circle, in their world. Alex would be nothing without Layla, and Layla would be nothing without Alex. So 2 examples of people having characters in your world. It's the same with our mate, Aman. Not my mate. Yeah. He had his mum, or has his mum, and would constantly talk about how his mum was the kind of like guiding light in his life, wanting to look after her. So these are the characters that these people have. They also have sets. So for example, the Tate brothers, they have their like compound in Romania. The Hormozis have their new acquisition.com office, if you're familiar with that. They're like their gym that they have and all that stuff. And Aman Gadzhi has his houses dotted around the world, which those are his sets. So that's what you guys need to do. And I'm going to show you an example of how I do this. So by the way, if you're new here, my name's Tom. Nice to meet you. And I am the founder of CreatorLaunch. Yes, inspired by Alex Hormozi. And we have a program. We've got a high ticket scaling program called Scale 20, which helps creators either get to 20K or add additional 20K increments to their monthly income. That's what I do. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about how that works in a little bit later on. But here's my world, just at a glimpse. If you don't know who I am, some of you who may know who I am, follow me on Instagram. This is where I share my world. I love golf. That's one of the things I love. I also love exercise. I also show my set, this is across the river from where I live in London. And I also love house music and misbehaving. I also love skiing and being in the mountains. So these are the parts of my world. And I'm intentional about showing these things at very specific times, whether it's through my long form content or my short form content. So that is number 1. That is your world. And it's probably a good idea for you to define those things. Okay, what's up next? Let's follow this little gray path down to your conviction. So you have to have conviction in a few different areas. The main one being that your way is better than all the other ways that can be done. Now, the truth is, and this is the dirty little secret of entrepreneurship that no one ever tells you about, not even the great Alex Hormozi, everything works. Everything fucking works. So, if everything works, why are there so many ways to do things? Because you have to choose the right way for you. So for example, me, I hate doing things like cold outreach. And therefore I have a system of lead generation that relies on not cold outreach. And so I have chosen specifically to do things in a specific way. And so an example of Hormozi and his conviction is the fact that he's written loads of books on these things. So he had his first Gym Launch Secrets book, and that eventually turned into $100 million offers. And then he's now releasing his collection of $100 million books. And so you need to have your mechanisms detailed, and you need to have conviction around them. And what conviction looks like is belief. So you need to have belief that your way is the best way. And I'm going to show you how I have that around mine. And the other side to this is that your mechanisms and models have an antithesis. And that antithesis is your enemy. And so, for example, for me, cold DMing, cold email, cold outreach works. I just absolutely fucking hate it because it's not how I choose to use my time. And so my belief is twofold. One of my beliefs is that funnels suck, because what you end up happening is you have a whole load of people that go through this thing and then end up in this big old pile of dead leads that just do not get it's a waste of money. So you pay for lead generation, you put energy, time into getting these leads, and then they end up in a pile of dead leads to be forgotten. Whereas I believe the better way to do things is to put people into a flywheel instead of a funnel. So what happens is we drive leads through one simple ad. We then get people over into our community with one simple community. We then pre-sell them on the value of working with us with one simple video. And then we get results with them through one simple offer. That's our value delivery system. And this way, what happens is people stay in the system and you nurture people over time. And so you don't end up with this dead pile of leads like you do with the funnel. That's my belief. And what I have is I've wrapped up that belief into a thesis, into my high ticket growth code thesis. And you can find out what that is through one of the links in the description. You'll be able to find it. So that is my conviction. And you need to find your conviction. The more convicted you are, by the way, the easier you will sell. Okay, so next up we have your journey. So this is made up of a few things. First up, your origin. So where did you start? Then your vision. Where are you going? And then your mission. Why do you do the things you do? Why is your vision the way it is? And I'm going to give you some examples of the best way to share this. I'm going to share it through Hormozi and Iman Gadzhi. So Gadzhi started posting videos, like this is 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, he was posting videos documenting him being obsessed with bodybuilding, talking about the conjugate method. A method, in my opinion, actually is the most effective method for building muscle. But I remember I was watching videos at the same time around the conjugate method 8 years ago. And Iman Gadzhi was making videos about it. And now he's making videos about how to make $1 million. And that's 8 years later. So he started and he documented his entire journey. And that's pretty much what Hormozi did. He talks about this in his podcast, The Game, which is the mission for documenting this is that he always wished Buffett, Musk and Bezos had documented their journey from zero to where they got to. And so he is doing that. And so he did the same, 6 years ago, was first video on YouTube. And then now he's posting every day. So that's how you do it. And this is how I did it as well. I started posting 6 years ago. And so I've been doing this too. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because if you haven't, you're just going to miss the rest of the good stuff. So subscribe. The lesson here, though, is that you have to be prolific. That's the real lesson, is that your journey means jack shit if it isn't prolific. So for example, The Game with Alex Hormozi, dude has made 750 episodes. And I saw on Alex Hormozi's YouTube channel that he's made 2,900 videos on his YouTube channel. I mean, obviously that's with shorts and stuff as well, but still prolific. I can't remember what Iman Gadzhi has, but you need to document your journey. Okay, next up we have your results. So here's a key distinction that you need to make. You, despite you thinking so, you are not the hero. Your audience is the hero. And you need to provide content that makes them see that they are the hero and they can become the hero of their own story. The best way to do this is through showing your results. And there are a couple of ways to do this. My favorite ways are case studies and customer stories in the form of interviews. That's why I have some interviews on my YouTube channel. And that's why I share results in my content. So on Instagram, in my Skool community. So Felipe getting a 4K 16-week program closed. Dan had the biggest month of his life for $20,000. Steven closed a new 8K client. Sana closed a 4K client the other day. I was like, I can't put loads of these in here because it would just take up forever. So, but you get the idea. You need to give it evidence and proof that you're capable of doing what you can. And this is an example of CreatorLaunch. So CreatorLaunch, they have a huge case studies page, and same with their YouTube channel. There's loads of case studies and results there. So you need results. Okay, next up, we have your transformation. Now, your transformation is made up of a few different things. So first up is your relatable downfall moment. You then have your Phoenix rising moment. So when you got down to the bottom and then all the way back up. And then your track record, like where have you been? What have you done? Why should people listen to you? So Hormozy, he's had his transformation. Again, very interesting in that like bodies get used a lot in these, like even though this is a transformation of someone who is saying he's young and now he's rich and jacked. I guess you want to be rich and jacked. Who doesn't want to be rich and jacked? Just like Hamza, who went from being a fucking nerd to rich and jacked. And I guess that's why I have similar YouTube thumbnails, going from being a fucking nerd to, well, not as rich as those guys, but definitely jacked. Well, depends on your definition of jacked. And the fact that I used to be a cosmetic dentist and now I'm an online entrepreneur. And the fact that when I first went into entrepreneurship, I got in the worst shape of my life because I was stressed as fuck. And now I'm back somewhat in shape. So that is my transformation. Transformations work really well because it proves that you have done the journey that your prospects are hoping to achieve, and you're showing that it's possible. So your transformation is really key when it comes to building a cult audience. Okay, next up, we have your identity. Now, this is something that Hamza does extremely well, and I'll explain to you in a second. This is the idea of an aspirational identity. So this is in Hamza's world, you can see it very, very obviously in this idea of, I can't remember, what do they call this guy, Jeffrey or something? Jeffrey? I think they call him Jeffrey. But the idea that there is this Jeffrey who is the anti-hero to the aspirational identity, which is fucking whatever, Adonis. I guess that's the name of his fucking school, Adonis. Anyway, but you see how he's using this visual imagery in this. So you need to give people an aspirational identity, give it a name. And what these people do really well, or like what these influencers do really well, is give people a lexicon to use. So if you've ever wondered why I say certain things, that it's intentional. So you want to have an us versus them frame. You want to tell people that there are those people doing that over there, but we are different for these reasons. And you do that through demonstrating and talking about your core values. So the aspirational identity is made up of name and lexicon. And so, Hamza, again, he's portraying this kind of image of being this guy that people just want to look up to. Social, jacked, clean cut, rich, wealthy, traveling abroad. It's very intentional. So that's the aspirational identity. So for me, for example, my aspirational identity that I have for my community is called Freedom Creators. And it's this idea that freedom creators build businesses more intentionally, which we talked about at the beginning of this, which is that people, if you do not build your business with intention, then you build it by default. And it's my lexicon, for example, is why I use things like right champs. And if you know me and you've been around here for a while, you'll get that. And I have a freedom creators code. And so this is a list of things that we do differently to typical business builders. So freedom creators, we're lifestyle first, whereas business builders are business first. Freedom creators are profit first. We think about profit, whereas business builders are revenue first. Really key distinction for us is that we do marketing-based conversion rather than sales-based conversion. So it means we don't have to hire huge sales teams. And we have zero pressure offer invites instead of having high pressure sales calls. Compact team, lean team, we have recurring revenue rather than just like a revenue roller coaster. We only work with dream clients, so we fuck off all the shit ones. We cap spots, so we're not just unlimited to drive up demand. We use one simple flywheel instead of using loads of crazy complex funnels. We have warm conversations instead of having cold conversations. We focus on lead efficiency rather than lead volume. We have an intimate tribe rather than a huge audience. We have an empty diary rather than a full diary, and we're always fed, as opposed to always hunting. We're free instead of being stuck. So that's how I have my Freedom Creator Code, and that's how I do it. So that is what makes up the cult audience formula. So the cult audience formula is made up of 3 different things. We've got our world, we've got our stories, and we have our proof. So our world is made up of our world and your conviction. Stories is made up of your journey and your results. And then proof is made up of your transformation and your identity. So that is the cult audience formula. And here is your little tease at the end. I said that there were 2 power sentences that if you add them in to your content, people will pay you a lot. So what are they? So the first one is, we'll go back to that. The first one is, if you are like me. And that is a nod to calling people out for their aspirational identity, being like, hey, if you aspire to be like me, if you are like me, then blah, blah, blah. And the other one is, I get asked this all the time. And this one is a massive authority play, because this shows that people are asking you about your perspective all the time. So those are the 2 power sentences that if you watch these guys speak, you'll hear them talk about this stuff all the time. Okay, now I want you to choose your adventure. You've got a couple of options here. So first up, you can become a member of my free private community, Scale by CreatorLaunch. This is for creators who are looking to scale. You know who you want to serve. You've made some money. You've probably got some case studies, but now it's time to add some scaling in. We have a bunch of free resources in here and other resources that you can access to. And if you want that, the link is down below. So that is number 1. Number 2 is, if you are looking to actually scale and you want to be surrounded by a network of high-performing entrepreneurs who are all doing the exact same thing, then I would like to invite you to our Scale 20 program. And this is relaunching in the next couple of weeks. And if you would like more information about that, about how you can become a private client of mine, then you need to DM me on Instagram. So that is if you are interested in getting mentored by me and becoming a client. Then if you would like to join a daily Insiders Insight newsletter for high ticket freedom creators only, you can join through the link down below. And there are over 1,500 people on that list. And then finally, if you want to understand my thesis about funnels are dead and that you need to use a flywheel, then you go click on that video right there. That was sick. I'll see you in the next one.